Wednesday afternoon to you, 4 o'clock time for Sports4CLE. Hope your afternoon's off to a good start. Thanks for joining us. Joe Flacco was on ESPN Cleveland today talking about his time with the Browns a couple years ago.
The fan bases in these things drive a lot of like the momentum behind things and the excitement, and the way that the fan base kind of reacted to that few weeks, I think kind of made it a little bit more special than an outsider would have expected. I don't necessarily consider myself somebody who seeks attention, but at the same time, it doesn't feel bad, that's for sure. And listen, I can't explain it any better than you guys. I had a fun time. I think that probably showed. I don't know. There was something about it that I just probably, hopefully felt genuine.
And again, fans excited that Joe Flacco is back. Mel Kiper Jr., that's ESPN's longtime draft analyst. His thoughts on Shedeur Sanders, who Kiper has as the #1 ranked quarterback in this class ahead of Cam Ward.
Ian, he's old school traditional. He really is. And I look back at my write-up on Drew Brees when he came out at 6'125". You think about the lack of great arm strength, talked about wind and where he went was important. Obviously, Chargers, then New Orleans, where he won a Super Bowl in that dome. And I really believe Shedeur in New Orleans would be a great fit with the Saints. You play Dome, Atlanta Dome, Carolina, Tampa. That would be a great fit for Shedeur Sanders, the New Orleans Saints. And to me, you talk about his toughness, right? How about the fact he had no running game, okay? Omarion Hampton and Ashton Genty had more rushing yards in 2 games than they had their leading rusher had the whole year. So he didn't have the benefit of a running game. He did not benefit from a body. At least 2 years ago they couldn't. Got a little bit better this past year. And he's accurate. He's precise. Everything everybody wants. Decision-making, accuracy, toughness, he has. Now, he's 6'1.5". Can't change that, right? But 6'1.5" is more than good enough now in this day and age. And then you think about arm strength. Arm strength gets better. It's been proven with, Peyton and Brady and Drew Brees and others. So for me, Shedeur has what it takes. Now, will he have to be supported by a really good offensive line? That's what I said about Tom Brady when he was picked. So yes, he's not creative like Cam. He doesn't have the mobility of Cam. He doesn't have the rocket arm of Cam Ward. But certainly Shedeur, in the right offense with the right personnel around him, can be great.
And again, that makes for a problematic decision for Andrew Berry. Who do you go with? Do you go with Shedeur Sanders? Do you go with Travis Hunter? Here's what Ryan Clark, former Steelers defensive back, said when he thought about Travis Hunter. This from ESPN's NFL Live.
If you don't play Travis Hunter on both sides of the football, you don't need to draft Travis Hunter in the top 3. And I know people are going to kill me for this, but hear me out. Travis Hunter is not a top 3 pick as a wide receiver. Travis Hunter is not Julio Jones. Travis Hunter is not Randy Moss. Travis Hunter is not Larry Fitzgerald. Travis Hunter is not Marvin Harrison. Travis Hunter is not a top 3 pick on the defensive side of the ball. He's not either of the Woodsons. Pick one. He's not Charles. He's not Rod. He's not Deion Sanders. He's not Champ Bailey. Those are the sorts of people that you pick that play one position, one skill position that early in the draft. He's none of them. Now let's go further. Let's go to now. He's not Jamar Chase. He's not Justin Jefferson. He's not Patrick Surtain. He's not Derek Stingley. And so if you don't allow Travis Hunter to play both sides of the football, you actually waste a pick at least that early on Travis Hunter. Now let's think about what those players have that Travis Hunter won't have. They won't have an opportunity to work one side of the football and hone in on that craft, perfect that craft in order to gain and make the leaps and bounds that we see these people make, because that's all they have to worry about. Right now, I'm not comfortable saying if Travis Hunter was in the AFC North, I would say, hey, Travis, I want you to go stand across from Jamar Chase without help, and I expect you to stop him.
Again, that coming from a guy who was an NFL cornerback. So something to think about regarding Travis Hunter and potentially drafting the #2 overall. Tom Withers and I will talk Browns here in just a few minutes. Guardians starting a 3-game series against the Orioles in Baltimore last night, and Logan Allen got the start, and the 5th starter pitched pretty darn good. Allen goes 5 2/3 innings of 2-hit ball, 2 walks, 6 strikeouts, 3rd straight start where he's been really good. Logan Allen getting it done on the mound. 5th inning, Stephen Kwan at the plate, and don't go inside on Stephen Kwan. Turns on it. He keeps it fair. It's a 2-run home run. put the Guardians up by a score of 4-0. Sixth inning, now 5-0. It's Quan again. RBI single, bringing in another run. Bullpen gave up 3 runs late. Clase did work, a scoreless ninth. 6-3 the final. The Guardians defeat the Orioles. They've now won 6 of their last 7 games. Cavaliers, still not sure who they're going to play. They'll find that out a little bit later. They do know first game of the first round of the playoffs will be Sunday at Rocket Arena. Avery Johnson on what he wants to see from the Cavs this postseason.
Well, you dominate early in this playoffs. You know, when you're in that 1-8 matchup, that should be a broom. That should be a sweep. You set the tone. You dominate from the beginning, and really set the tone for the rest of this season. And Donovan Mitchell, you know, he's the leader. He's the leader of this team. You know, everybody else follows him. I love the move by getting DeAndre Hunter in that trade. I thought that was a genius move right there. Now he's give you more length, size on the perimeter. He can knock down the open shot. So I really like the way this team, you know, is built. Ty Jerome has had some big games for them. But again, I still would lean towards the Celtics, but I would say that this series would go 7 games with the Celtics winning it on Cleveland's home court.
A little bit later in the show, Sam Amico, hoopswire.com, Full Court Cleveland will join us, and we'll talk Cavs. We're going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Browns are up first. Tom Withers on the other side of the break. Sports for CLE. Be right back. Stay with us.
Hey, you know, the new Mega Millions is coming through any minute now.
It's here.
Bigger jackpots.
50 million?
50 million. New multiplier included.
Better odds?
Bigger wins. All for just
$5?
Let's go!
We begin by talking Browns here on Sports for CLE. Earlier in the show, we heard from Joe Flacco. Here's what he had to say about what he expects from training camp this year.
Well, as far as where I stand, and at least what I think is going to be going on. I mean, you could probably talk to Kevin and those guys more, but I don't think there's any expectation of exactly who's going to be the starting quarterback. So, you know, I'm excited to get in that room and go show that I have, you know, a lot of football ahead of me and kind of become part of the team and do my best to prove all those things, just like you always would when you know, kind of come into a new situation.
Let's welcome in Tom Withers, longtime Cleveland reporter. And Tom, everybody's excited about Flacco, and you hear it straight from his mouth. Wasn't promised anything. Sounds like it's certainly going to be a quarterback competition. We haven't had one of those in a while here.
Yeah, why didn't they do this a year ago? I mean, that's a rhetorical question. I think we all know why they didn't do it. But Joe Flacco has arrived. He's back. I can honestly say, Dave, that was the most fun I had over a month period in covering the Browns since '99. So welcome back, number 15. I think it's, you know, I figured that they were going to add another veteran. You know, we can talk about what we think they're going to do in the draft in terms of the quarterback. But, you know, Flacco is obviously a proven commodity. He adds veteran leadership. He adds so much to that quarterback room. You know, I would expect he and Kenny Pickett and whoever they take in the draft to all be competing for the job, but I would have to give Flacco I would have to consider him the front runner. I mean, this guy can still play at a pretty high level, despite being my age, and can still get things done. So I'm so glad that he's back, and yeah, we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, and again, it'll be fun, and let's hope it's truly a competition that I'm go out and play, and whomever plays the best, you put out there and you start that. I wish they would have done that a season ago, to be honest with you. I mean, we would have saved some headache.
It definitely would have. And I think it will be an open competition. I don't think first of all, I don't think he would sign here without some kind of guarantee that he'd be given a fair fight, if you will. So I think, you know, between him and Pickett, obviously you got two guys that you know you can win with. And then both can serve as mentors to whether it's Shedeur Sanders or Jalen Milroe or Jackson Dart or however the quarterback situation aligns in the draft. And I do think they're going to take at least one quarterback. I would not be shocked if they don't take two quarterbacks, one as early as the second round and then one maybe in the middle rounds. They got to get this right. Joe Flacco's here for 1 year, so obviously that room's going to have some changeover once again. As I told you last time, I think I was on with you, Dave. I'm not selling Kenny Pickett short. I think it's a small enough sample size that we've seen from him and seen enough good things from him to think that with another coaching staff, with the confidence of knowing that he's going to get a legitimate shot to be the starter, that he could have an impactful time here in Cleveland. So I know a lot of people are obviously swayed by the fact that he played at Pittsburgh. He then played for the Steelers. And so I think a lot of people right away are like, we don't need a Steelers cast off. But I'm not going to sell Kenny Pickett short.
All right, so let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey, I'm a long-time Cleveland Browns fan. Far back as Bill Nelson, Paul Warfield, and Gary Collins. I have a message for Andrew Berry. Andrew Berry, swing for the fences, baby, because you need to hit you a home run. Because if you let Shedeur Sanders go to New York Giants, he will be a star. So you got to swing for the fences. This could save your job. This could save Stefanski's job. And it could turn this whole organization around. I'm telling you, Shedeur Sanders is a winner. And you got to save Cleveland. Please go draft him. Go get your quarterback. Thank you.
Tom, it's interesting that there is no clear-cut. I still don't have a clear-cut guy that they're going to pick at 2. If you told me it was going to be Sanders, it wouldn't surprise me. If you told me it was going to be Hunter, it wouldn't surprise me. If you told me it was going to be Abdul Carter, it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, at this point now, Dave, I've pushed all my chips into the Travis Hunter corner. I think, and I pardon the pun there, he's also a wide receiver. I think that's who they've settled on. Just kind of reading the tea leaves. They've interviewed both those guys. You and I talked about this a couple weeks ago. It is not far-fetched that Hunter could slide in the draft and then suddenly could be available in the teens or the 20s, and the Browns would make a move and pair these two Colorado Buffaloes and former Jackson State teammates together again. So obviously the situation in New Orleans with Derek Carr being hurt has maybe changed things in terms of what the Saints want to do at number 9. And so I don't know how far Shedeur would drop. Now, I don't disagree with the caller. I think there are star qualities about Shedeur Sanders. I think he's got a chance to be a very competent quarterback in the NFL. I just don't think he's what the Browns are looking for right now. I think they've got so many needs. To me, obviously the biggest need is a quarterback. Beyond that, though, it's a playmaker. And I think in a guy like Travis Hunter, you can check a couple different boxes. He could be a playmaker for you at wide receiver. You could use him in packages. Again, there's really not a whole lot of precedent for guys playing both ways a full game. I don't think that's even doable, not in the NFL. Listen, they're not, the Browns aren't playing Colorado State next week. So let's be realistic about what this kid physically can do in the NFL, taking nothing away from him. He's a tremendous talent. But as far as Sanders is concerned, listen, this happens every year with these quarterback classes, right? We dissect and analyze these guys to the point that it makes it sound like nobody would want any of them. And we all know that there are going to be quarterbacks that emerge in this draft. They're going to be 10 and 12-year quarterbacks in the NFL. Happens every year. There's also going to be a quarterback that is going to slide up the board. There's going to be one that drops down. I think this quarterback class, to me, is very underappreciated and in some ways underrated. I still think there's some really good value in guys like Milroe, in guys like Will Howard, in guys like Kyle McCord, even though I know that's not a name that Ohio State fans necessarily want to hear. But I think there's plenty of other options for the Browns should they decide not to take the quarterback at number 2.
All right, so it's kind of interesting as well. You mentioned, Sanders potentially sliding. Browns had both Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter together when they went out to dinner. Sanders, before their pro day, Sanders talked about that meeting.
Yeah, so me and Trav went out to dinner with them the night before, and it was cool. We went to the steakhouse. We got some steak. I don't know what Trav got. I think he got lamb or something. I don't know. Me and Trav both took our 30 visit with them at the same time, so it was cool that we were able to go through the process together, side by side, and I know draft day, I know it should be me or him going there. Which one, I don't know, but I think we're the most qualified players to go to that organization.
So it's kind of interesting, Tom, when you figure they had the dinner and they had their 30 visits together. It leads me to believe Andrew Berry was trying to figure out a way to get both of them.
Yeah, I think that's still potential. And as you know, the caller said before, they're going to take a big swing. They have to take a big swing at number 2. So if you decide to go to the quarterback, that's obviously a big swing. If you decide to take, the Heisman Trophy winner who can play on both sides of the ball, to me, that's a big swing as well, because you need a quarterback there. So, as you and I have talked about before too in the past, Dave, I just wonder, in terms of the Browns, and because of the damage that was done by Watson, which was as big a swing and a miss as you can make in the NFL, as to whether or not the Browns front office is gun shy. I don't necessarily think they do. I think Andrew Berry is confident not only in his evaluation, but in his scouting staff and the coaching staff to know that whoever they take it to is the guy that they want and that they really need at that spot. So I do think there is a world where this could happen, where suddenly they take Hunter at 2 and Sanders is still available. And, the only thing I would caution the Browns about is they've waited so long to be in this kind of position. They finally have some draft assets that they need to use to fulfill this roster on both sides of the ball. So if they were going to think about moving from that 33 spot back into the first round to get Sanders, it's going to come at a cost. And I'm not sure the Browns are in position to do that right now.
I'm with you. And I think what you're referring to is you don't really want to give up next year's one. And that's
absolutely not. I'm
kind of with you with that. If you can do it and keep your one, maybe. This is interesting as well. It's from CBSSports.com. Fewest quarterbacks drafted in the first round past 20 years. So 2022, it was just Kenny Pickett. 2013, E.J. Manuel. 2015, Winston and Mariota. You see 2010, Bradford and Tebow. It was pretty good in 2008. Matt Ryan and Flacco. 2007, not nearly as good. Jamarcus Russell and Brady Quinn. Because of the value placed on quarterbacks, there's probably going to be 3, maybe even 4 that end up in the first round this year. That's how the league has changed, is I think what that shows you.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, it is still the most vital position that there is in sports, right? I mean, you got to find the guy there, and nobody knows that better than Browns fans. I mean, it's been a 25-year plus ordeal here to find the guy. So, as I've mentioned to you before too, Dave, people say, well, if you don't take this guy at number 2, you're missing the chance to do it. And if you don't get the guy that you need at 33, then, once again, you're missing out on the chance to do it. There's other ways to skin a cat, as we've seen in this league. I mean, quarterbacks are moving around now more than ever. I mean, look at Geno Smith, look at Sam Darnold, look at Justin Fields, look at Russell Wilson. Andrew Rodgers is still out there. Quarterbacks are on the move constantly. So if this is a bridge quarterback kind of season or 2 for the Browns, I don't think that's the worst thing in the world. I mean, they've got to get it right. If it takes a little extra time, then it takes a little extra time. So again, you don't want to make a mistake. You don't want to overreach. You can't afford to do that at number 2. And I would argue you can't afford to do that at number 33 either.
Tom Withers and I are going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, we'll talk a little bit more about that second overall pick. Sports4CLE, we'll be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program is dedicated to recognizing exceptional students, teachers, and schools throughout Ohio. Scan the QR code on screen to nominate students and teachers as Academic All-Stars and Teachers of the Month. They must be currently enrolled or teach in grades K through 12. Is your K through 12 school developing students' literacy skills to achieve success in reading? If so, you can nominate your school for the School of the Year. Students can win $100, teachers can win $500, and schools can win $2,500. Scan the QR code, fill out the forms, and nominate deserving students, teachers, and schools today. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program takes pride in honoring exceptional students, teachers, and schools across Ohio. Submit your nomination today. It's fun, fast, and free. We continue talking Browns with Tom Withers. Jordan Schultz, Fox Sports NFL insider, on what he sees with Travis Hunter.
Travis Hunter, easily one of the most intriguing draft prospects in recent memory due to his two-way ability. Now, Hunter has met with many teams in the lead up to the draft, Colin, all of which haven't had any issues with him playing on both sides of the ball. However, Hunter made it very clear that if a team did tell him to pick just one position, he said he'd rather, quote, never play football again. Now, I think the NFL is looking at this wrong. I think Travis Hunter is Shohei Ohtani. If I told you, Colin, you could have Shohei Ohtani, would you be interested in him? Yes, Travis Hunter, he played 753 snaps on offense, 87%, and over 83% on defense. He can do it. Now, I don't know if that means he can do both all the time, but the fact that he is so smart, so gifted, and so special, and the fact that, this is key, Dion already said, the time in between plays isn't really an issue, and you get more time, 36 seconds in the NFL compared to 32 in college. He'll have more time to adjust. I just think Travis Hunter, if we're really looking at him as a generational prospect, which he is on both sides of the ball, then not only should he be in contention to be the number 1 overall pick, but we should be looking at him like a future All-Pro.
Tom, I don't want to rain on anybody's parade, but Shohei Ohtani had Tommy John surgery. So, let's keep in mind he hasn't pitched because he had Tommy John surgery. And I don't doubt that he can do it. There's two things. The pace of play, that doesn't concern me. Physicality of play concerns me. And if I was this kid's agent, I'd ask him this: how long do you want to play? 4 years? Because you're cramming 8 years of snaps into 4 years if you're playing on both sides of the football. And oh, by the way, it's much, much, much more physical once you hit the NFL. Those are grown men playing for their livelihood. So I try to extend that out and try to get a second and third contract as opposed to playing 800 snaps, if I'm playing, or 1,600 snaps if I'm playing both sides of the ball.
Right. I think that's a great point, Dave. Also, he answered a question this week, right, which was, whether or not he can do it both ways, and then he makes the headline-grabbing comment that I'll quit football. Okay, Travis, let's settle down for a second here. You don't take the kid because he can play both sides of the ball. You take him because you believe that he is either the best wide receiver in the draft or the best cornerback in the draft. And then the bonus is that you can put him on the other side of the ball in a package. And I'm with you, Dave. I think this all sounds really sexy. Obviously, it's going to create a lot of buzz. Obviously, people are comparing him to Shohei Ohtani already, which is, oh, by the way, let's slow that roll as well. But, I think you take this kid because you need a playmaker. I know the Browns like this kid a lot. They see him as a full-time wide receiver and then potentially somebody they could use in packages on defense. And I'm with you 100%. I don't think physically he's going to be able to stand up and do this for very long. And listen, this all sounds great leading into the draft. You get him out there on the practice field. You see that maybe he's not necessarily the defensive back that you thought he was. That's not to say that he's not a great athlete, but you also see there's other great athletes in this league that are not playing both ways. I don't see the Minnesota Vikings playing Justin Jefferson on both sides of the ball, and I promise you that he could do it. There's also the situation where you're in a game, you're playing how many snaps on offense. Suddenly you're on defense. You're being forced to come up and you're going to have to come up and tackle Najee Harris or somebody on the corner. Suddenly you're going to put him at unbelievable risk. I'm with you. And in terms of a longevity standpoint, it's going to come to a point where he's probably going to have to make a decision, or his team and he are going to have to come to some kind of a compromise. Look, this is what you are. This is what you do best. Let's roll from there. If we can get you in on a couple of nickel packages now and again, we'll do so. But again, you don't take this kid just because he can play both ways.
All right. So you mentioned skill position players, playmakers. When I looked at this, it's frightening. These are the skill position guys that the Browns have drafted in the first 2 rounds since going all the way back to 2005. Chubb and Njoku, I sign up for those. I was 17 and 18. Then it goes Corey Coleman, yikes. Trent Richardson, Greg Little. I forgot about Montario Hardesty from Tennessee. Rubisky and Massaquoi wide receivers. Braylon Edwards at pick 3. He had a year or two where he was pretty good. But, you know, we wonder why the Browns have struggled to score. They're not investing draft capital. You know, there are so many studies with wide receivers, if you don't take them in the first round, they're not nearly as productive. I know they've traded for him. Let's go draft one and develop one.
Go get him. Yeah, well, again, you know, you haven't been in this position very often, right? I mean, Trent Richardson was the number 3 pick. Listen, he had a great rookie year. I was one of the people that thought that was a good pick at the time. The game has changed since then, Dave. So to your point, I mean, you need guys that can go out there and make plays, you know, down after down, and that's the skill guys. And so, you know, back to Andrew Berry for a second. You know, his track record hasn't been great, but we all know better than anybody else that he also hasn't had a first-round pick the last 3 years. So there hasn't been, you know, a lot of opportunities for him to fix that situation. So, you know, again, I'll say it. I think Hunter, you could argue, is the best playmaker on both sides of the ball. And so if a skill position is what you need and it's a wide receiver or it's a cornerback, again, he fits both of those. I'm just more convinced that he's the wide receiver that you could pair with Jerry Jeudy and really have a dynamic outside threat for this team for the first time in a long time.
So assuming that there is no franchise quarterback for Andrew Berry to get in this draft, what do you think he and the Browns need to come away with in the draft? They've got, I think it's 5 picks in the top 104. What do they need to come away with for this draft to be successful?
You know, I would say a couple of starters. I don't think you necessarily have to nail, like, you know, you have to get 4 out of 5 have to be Pro Bowlers or anything like that. You just can't have big misses, Dave. You can't have, you know, guys that after 2 or 3 years you're thinking about trading or you're not signing them to that second contract. You know, with all due respect, you know, your Jedrick Wills and your Greg Newsomes, you know, guys like that. If you're going to take them high in the draft, you got to be damn sure that these are going to be guys that are going to be with your team for, you know, 5 years and beyond, you know, hopefully 10 years if you're going to be taking them that high in the draft. So, you know, as I mentioned to you before too, I think there's still another way for them to find their franchise quarterback, that they don't necessarily have to use it at number 2. But, you know, listen, there's a lot of pressure on Andrew Berry, but I also think that he might have the benefit of what happened with the what happened with him with the Watson situation may buy him a little more time. So I don't think it's necessarily this year as much as it's this year and next year to determine how long he's going to be here. Like, you know, to me, what Jimmy Haslam said a few weeks ago about the big swing and miss, about he and D Haslam being accountable for the mistake that they made, that this team has to dig itself out from under, buys Andrew Berry a little time. That's not to say that he doesn't have to get this one right and that he doesn't have to find, you know, some stars here and then, or some solid players here, and then hopefully you find a star, you know, 3rd, 4th, or 5th round, and you get lucky and you find a guy that nobody else likes and you get it right, that diamond in the rough, if you will. So, you know, pressure on him. There's always pressure on him, but, you know, I don't think he has to necessarily go out and find, you know, 3 All-Pros in the first 3 rounds this year.
No, I would agree. You've got to show progress. You got to show that you're developing and moving back to where you feel like, hey, we're right in the middle of this, at least in the AFC North. Tom Withers is always.
Or just get to.
Go ahead.
Sorry, David. Or just get to the point where, you know, like we do every year when we see the Steelers take certain guys, we're like, oh, there's a Steelers draft pick. Or the Ravens, you know, they just seem to draft well year after year. There's continuity, there's stability, there's an understanding of, hey, we've had a great offensive tackle, we need another one, and this is the kind of guy we got to get. The Browns haven't had that. The Browns haven't had that in the expansion era, and that's got to change.
Agree with you wholeheartedly. Tom Withers, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Tom.
Dave, anytime. Take care.
Tom Withers, always really good and insightful stuff. Long time Browns, Cavs, and Guardians reporter. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Lance Reisland from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com, with film breakdown, video analysis from some day 3 guys that he thinks the Browns might be interested in. That's straight ahead on Sports4CLE. Stay with us.
Hey, you know, the new Mega Millions is coming through any minute now.
It's here.
Bigger jackpots.
50 million?
50 million? New multiplier included.
Better odds?
Bigger wins. All for just
$5?
Let's go!
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Let's welcome in Lance Reisland from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Lance, we're going to continue on with the second part of the mock draft, or the first part last week. This one is day 3, guys. Take us through kind of what you're looking for and what you think the Browns and Andrew Berry look for day 3 of the draft.
Well, it's a combination of things. So I would, for me personally, I would love them to, kind of have a combination of guys who have production and guys who have potential, right? So Andrew Berry has always been a guy who has guardrails in terms of age, and he's had guardrails in terms of just traits, right? Guys have to have elite physical traits, and I agree with that to a certain extent. But some guys test really well, and then they're not really football players, and some guys don't test well at all. I remember, some of my friends in college that were really, really good football players, and they weren't great testers. Some guys just are good football players. So there's a combination. Obviously, being down there all the time, I see that you have to be a certain size and speeds, but some guys can play. So I kind of went through and found some guys who have some potential, also have a lot of production, and kind of tried to think of how Andrew Berry is going to think when he picks on this third day, which is very important. They have to start hitting on these, 4th through 7th rounders. They have not had much success yet.
All right, so pick 179, an edge rusher you go with, Olufemi Oladejo, and he is 6'3", 259 pounds from UCLA. What did you see from Oladejo when you looked at him?
Well, Oladejo's into the guy. So you're going to see him here. First of all, he comes off the edge, right? So he's got great bend. He's a great athlete. He's got a relentless motor, which I really think the Browns need too. Guys who just like to play football. And that sounds kind of weird. Now, he had a great Senior Bowl. This against Jalen Travis, who's a guy I have, I think, too. He bends very well. You're going to see him. He's got great traits, long arms. He's 6'3". He's 260 pounds. What I really like about him is the fact that he played linebacker at Cal. He transferred to UCLA, and they made him an edge. So all the stats he had, 25 tackles for a loss, 6+ sacks. That basically happened in 1 year at UCLA. He's got a guy. He's going to improve his pass rush, but he's a guy who's got great physical traits. And once again, this would be an Andrew Berry guy who, this is a guy who hasn't really reached his full potential yet. This is a guy who's probably going to be available rounds 5 through 7. A guy who's got some long arms. He's strong. He's got 200 plus tackles in his college career. And once again, he's just learning this edge position. Now, the thing that makes him really good is that he's played linebacker. So with Jim Schwartz, he's position flexible, which I also think is very important.
All right, so next pick for the Browns, 192, and you have him going wide receiver, and this guy that, again, he had an impressive Senior Bowl, Xavier Restrepo from Miami of Florida, 5'10", 209. Didn't run real well is probably the reason he's down where he is.
Well, I love Xavier Restrepo. So he's what I like to call QB friendly. He finds holes. He understands zone. Was Cam Ward's #1 guy. You're going to see him here sit in the zone, find the zone, allow Cam Ward to improvise and find a hole. You're going to see him here work out the backer here, and he's going to run a kind of an abbreviated out route. Now, he doesn't run very well on the track. Maybe he ran a 4.8, 4.83, but he's football fast. Another good route here against man coverage. He's going to take his man inside to get outside, which is a very important kind of a savvy veteran move. You think of like Cooper Kupp. This guy kind of reminds me of Cooper Kupp. He's got a lot of savvy. He understands the game of football, both zone and man coverage. He's a guy that doesn't test well at all. All I know is when you watch him on film, he gets open, and he gets open all the time against really fast guys. So he's a guy who understands a guy that quarterbacks love to throw to, because he's going to be where he's expected to be on every route, which sounds kind of silly, but that's very important for a quarterback. He consistently runs the same routes all the time. So once again, I like Luther Burden early as an explosive guy, but I think the Browns need a guy who's reliable. And Restrepo is a guy that I just love on film. And once again, he's a guy that Andrew Berry probably wouldn't like leading up this draft. But again, they haven't had a lot of success within rounds 4 through 7. So this is a guy who's really not based on potential. This is a guy based on production.
And again, he's the guy that had a really good Senior Bowl, especially in the one-on-one drills, was showing up and open all the time. Coming back at pick 200, you haven't taken one of Restrepo's teammates, running back Damian Martinez, a little bit bigger back, 6'1", 217. What do you like about Martinez?
Well, he's a guy who I think he's first of all, he's violent, and when you're a runner in this in the Browns scheme, this outside zone counter scheme, gap scheme, this guy runs great downhill. He's not a guy who, again, he's not overly overwhelming with this test stuff, but what he is a guy who leans forward. And I think they have a home run hitter in Jerome Ford. I thought Ford did a great job last year of getting better but I think he'd be better as a third down back. What you get out of Martinez is a guy who's 220 pounds and he's always leaning forward. He finishes every run. So every run he gets, at the end, he's going to finish. You see good speed there. You're going to see a counter here. We're going to pull the right guard, right tackle, and you're going to see him. What I like about this run is the end of the run right there, where he's going to finish the run and then finish forward. And that's very important for the Browns. They have the new quarterback. They're in a must-win situation this year. They have to do a better job of protecting their defense and helping whoever their quarterback is. And that starts with getting to 2nd, 5, 2nd, and 6. And you and I have talked about that a bunch, but that's a very important. I don't think this guy's a super home run hitter, but a guy you're going to get on day 3 that is going to move the pile and get you to 2nd and 5, which is crucial for the Browns offense.
Without question. And, we've kind of talked a lot about them going back to the Kevin Stefanski type of offense, which means some tight ends. And coming up at 216, the next pick, you have him taking a tight end, Luke Lachey, and he's a big one, 6'6", 251 from Iowa. What do you like about Lachey?
Well, first of all, I love Iowa tight end. So you're going to see him here. He's very position flexible. He's a lot more athletic than I thought. So you can see him drive vertical and then get to run his out route, which is very important. And Iowa's offense really struggled throwing the football, so his numbers weren't what they should be. You're going to see him out at receiver here running a slant against a corner, which is a really good route, uses his body as position, gets in the end zone. Then you're going to see a classic Kevin Stefanski zone boot here, where you're going to fake the outside zone, and they're going to throw the boot with Lachey on the first level. Now, the thing you like about him, like I said, first of all, he understands how to block in line, which I think is very important. You can see him here on a 7 route, great ball skills, goes up and gets it. And I think that's very important, his ability to use that length to his advantage. So, again, he gives you a red zone option. Another thing you get with him is he understands how to put his hand on the ground and block in line. That's something that they don't really have. Njoku's not a guy who puts his hand on the ground. He can, but he's better with when he's in the slot and blocking as a tight end in a 2-point stand. So, Lachey, they're going to have to take one more. I think they're going to either have to get or draft more than one tight end, especially if they're going to go back to the 12 and 13 personnel. Njoku is their prime guy, but they don't have much after Njoku because that wasn't what they wanted to go with last year. So I love Lachey. I'm a big fan of Iowa tight ends. They know how to play the game of football. They're tough. They're violent. They're good with their hands. They block well. They catch well. They're team guys. And again, a lot of my guys for the Browns, I just think they have to be tough guys who like to play football, and guys at Iowa like to play football.
All right, and the final pick of this one, you have going offensive tackle and a large offensive tackle, Jalen Travis, 6'8", 339 pounds from Iowa State. What do you see with Travis that you like?
Well, first of all, it's a developmental guy, right? So you're going to see him here. Watch his left feet, how quick he is. And that's a guy 6'8", 340 pounds. And you're going to see he consistently does this. Gets off the ball here well. Does a great job of turning his hips inside on that zone play. What I like, you see him pulling here on an outside toss play. What he has is great feet. He's a developmental guy. He's got to work on his bend. So some guys can get underneath him. He'll struggle. If the Browns were to draft him, he'd struggle with the bend of Myles Garrett. But he's a guy who has that athletic ability. He just needs to learn the game. Started off at Princeton, which tells you he's a smart kid. Then he went to Iowa State, and he was really, really good. Now, he's a guy, because of his limitations and his lack of film, I would say, might be around late in the draft. I have him going, obviously in round 7. He's a guy who might be afraid. This guy is a really good football player with a really bright future. His best football is in front of him. He's got a massive wingspan. He's got big hands. He's got long arms. The thing I like about him, too, is he's got DeJuan Jones. And when you're big like that, you can do things differently. So he's got a guy the same size that can teach him how to use that size to his advantage. I think this guy would be a steal in the later parts of the round. Plus, he played at Iowa State. I'm a big Campbell fan. Well-coached, tough. Again, kind of fits that element. Browns need football players who are tough and like to play. And this guy, Travis, fits that mold. Love this guy on film.
Well, the other thing is he's got things that you can't teach. 6'8", 339, and good feet. The stuff that you need, you can teach him.
Yeah, and this guy, if you want to know what Andrew Berry, and I've been asked a lot of questions in the last 2 weeks, and especially in the last couple of days, what does Andrew Berry really look for? this is a perfect guy when you think about what Andrew Berry draws up on the board or would create in terms of a guy who you get late in the round, you get high risk, high reward, low risk, great physical traits. This is the guy that Andrew Berry likes because of the potential he brings to the table. And once again, he played in a really good conference for a really good coach who I have a lot of respect for. Just a guy who has a bright future if he gets in the right system.
Lance Reisland, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Lance.
As always, thanks for having me.
Lance Reisland, make sure you check him out. Always really good film analysis, video breakdown. His two-part mock draft here on Sports4CLE. Check him out, cleveland.com. We're going to turn our attention to the Cavaliers. Sam Amico from hoopswire.com, Full Court Cleveland. Straight ahead on Sports4CLE. Stay with us.
Hey, the new Mega Millions is coming through any minute now.
It's here.
Bigger jackpots.
50 million?
50 million? New multiplier included.
Better odds?
Bigger wins. Ultra just.
$5?
Let's go!
We turn our attention to the Cavaliers here on Sports4CLE. Cavs still trying to figure out who they're going to play. That's to be determined. It will be Sunday at Rocket Arena. Let's welcome in Sam Amico, hoopswire.com, co-host of Full Court Cleveland. Sam, I know you've talked about this, and I'm curious. Regular season was really good. But how is this group for the Cavs going to be defined, do you think?
Yeah, this is where you're going to be judged, right? How far you go in the playoffs, and not just how far you go, but how you look along the way. Last year they advanced to the second round, but really seemed to break down after those first two games against Orlando. I think a lot of people remember how they were down 18 to Orlando at home in Game 7, and took a miraculous performance from Donovan Mitchell to bring them back. So even though they got to the second round last season, the vibes weren't positive going into this past summer, which is why they made the coaching change and all that. So, everything, how they're viewed, obviously people are going to remember this regular season for a long time because it was a historic regular season in the history of the franchise, the first time to hit 60 or more wins without LeBron James on the team. Just so much went right during the regular season, but what as great as that was, everything's going to come down to how do you look in the postseason and how far do you go?
What about the job Kobe Altman did, kind of sticking to his guns with the core four? I was one of the guys that was like, man, I don't know if this is going to work, but it looks like it might be able to work.
Yeah, well, familiarity counts for a lot, obviously. I think that we all had our doubts whether or not that would be the case last offseason. Most of us sat around, myself included, thinking, really, that's all they're going to do is hire a coach? They were one of three teams last offseason that did not make any kind of move involving their standard roster. They didn't sign any kind of free agent to a standard contract, and they didn't make any trades. And all they did was hire Coach Kenny Atkinson. I think a lot of people were, is this really what you're going to do? So, yeah, Kobe Altman really could be in the running for Executive of the Year by not doing anything but beyond hiring a coach, at least during the offseason. Obviously, during the season, they made the big trade for DeAndre Hunter. But even up until that trade, the Cavs were pretty much cooking.
Yeah, and again, points to him for seeing that it could work. So we know the Celtics will open the playoffs against the Magic. They won the play-in game against the Hawks yesterday. That's a team I really didn't want to see. I didn't want the Cavs to see in the Magic, and not because I think they can beat them, but I think they're physical, and if they are the first hurdle in a playoff series, you're going to feel them in the second round of a playoff series.
Yeah, that's exactly it. They're a very physical team. They're the best defensive team in the NBA in terms of defending the 3-point line. They've got great size. I mean, their front court. When you talk about uh, Paolo Banchero, Franz Wagner, and Wendell Carter Jr., and bring Jonathan Isaac off the bench, they've really got some great size. They've got good depth. You know, we saw, if you saw the game against Atlanta, the play-in game, Cole Anthony came off the bench and, you know, really had himself a night. He's capable of doing that. So there's a lot of things that the Magic do very well. They're inconsistent offensively, but they will get down and they will defend, and they play playoff style basketball all season. So, yeah, out of the four options between the Magic, Hawks, Heat, and Bulls, I would say out of those four, that's the one that the Cavs would have want to have seen least. And it's nice that the Celtics have to face them in the first round because, as you said, Dave, you will feel them and whatever mark they left on you in the second round.
So what do you want to see from the Cavs? I mean, whomever they play, they clearly should handle. But what do you need to see in round one of the playoffs from the Cavs to feel good about them moving forward?
Well, just keep doing what you're doing offensively, you know, where you're sharing the wealth, sharing the scoring load, have a lot of options. You want to see Darius Garland continue to play like he played the majority of the season, which, you know, he's had a career year, been fantastic running the show and hitting outside shots. To me, obviously, Evan Mobley, also a career year. Want to see more of the same from those two, when the game slows down a little bit in the playoffs, and so much more is predicated on being able to hit outside shots. So those are the two things. You want those things to continue. Now, the main Achilles heel or concern is how do they defend the 3-point line? You know, that it was they did a nice job at times during the season. Other times they did a very poor job. So which defensive team are they going to be? That's why you went out and got DeAndre Hunter to help you defend the 3-point line, defend wings, and even serve as a backup power forward defensively. But you need him to continue the great year that he's had. If everything continues and stays the course, they'll be in really good shape to get to the finals.
So I know you also wrote an article, just Darius Garland, kind of on the playoff rival, and that being the Celtics. You know, the big, they look like they're on a collision course. Take us through that article and what you heard from Garland.
Yeah, he just said that the Celtics kind of view the Cavs as their little brother, and he wasn't saying that, you know, for bulletin board material. He said, but that's the reality of the situation. They're the defending champions. We have not gotten through them or past them in the playoffs, so that would make sense if the Celtics view the Cavs that way. And, you know, he talked about that a little bit. He didn't really I got the sense that he had the preference for a first round opponent, but he just smiled and kind of brushed it off. Of course, you don't want to say who you prefer, you know, going into a series, but that's the thing. And the Cavs, even though they say the Celtics and the Cavs do meet in the Eastern Conference Finals, the Cavs will have home court advantage, but still, you know, everybody's going to be favoring Boston in that series, I would assume. Should both teams get there. So that was Garland's point, is that until we prove that we can get past them, that's how we're going to be viewed, is kind of like, yeah, we're the second best team in the Eastern Conference, even though we have the number one seed.
Is that motivating to those guys, do you think? Donovan, that doesn't seem like that would sit well with guys that are as competitive as Mitchell, Garland, and some of the Cavs.
Yeah, no, I think that's great motivation. You know, I think that they think they can beat Boston too. There's no, you know, oh, well, let's just hope we get to play them in the Eastern Conference Finals. I think they really believe that they can beat them. But yeah, that's a great motivator for a team to say, you know, or be viewed nationally even, you know, forget what they're viewed as to the Celtics or even some people locally, and Cavs fans might even think that way. I think, you know, for the Cavs themselves, They just look at it like, let everybody keep thinking that because that gives us extra determination. And, you know, obviously not everybody was healthy, but when they played the Celtics last time, they were down 25-3 in Boston, came back, won that game. I think that speaks to just the Cavs' level of confidence should they both get to the Eastern Conference Finals.
How curious are you to see what Kenny Atkinson does in playoff basketball? There were so many things that you looked at during the regular season, and you're like, wow, they made the right hire. I'm really curious to see him in a playoff series where moves and coaching moves become more important.
Yeah, everything becomes magnified in terms of what the coaches do and how their in-game adjustments go. I think that's really been Kenny Atkinson's strength, is kind of those in-game adjustments and getting his guys to, you know, make the right moves and make the right decisions with the basketball. And when the ball starts to stick just a little bit, which really hasn't been an issue this year, that's a big reason for that is Kenny Atkinson saying, hey, get the ball back moving, get some open shots. A big stat they keep is shot quality. And that's going to, you know, that's something that will benefit you greatly in the postseason. Again, if you look at an Achilles heel, small Achilles heel on a 64-18 team, it's consistency, defending the three-point line. They do a great job at the basket for the most part, but you've got to be able to defend the three-point line in today's NBA. And I think that's where Kenny Atkinson, that's been the message. You know, the Cavs have had a full week of practice before they play their game on Sunday. I think that's been the message is no matter who we play in the first round or moving forward beyond that, here are the principles that we need to follow to do a better job defending the three-point arc.
Sam Amico from hoopswire.com, as always, great stuff. Sammy, we'll know game one is Sunday, so I'm sure we'll be talking matchups and playoff series when we talk to you next week. Thanks very much, Sam. Appreciate it.
All right, Dave. Thanks so much for having me. We'll talk to you soon.
Sam Amico, make sure you check him out. Hoopswire.com, always really good stuff. You can also catch him in Full Court Cleveland. He will have plenty on whomever the Cavs get in that first round of the playoffs. We're going to step aside, take a quick timeout. We turn our attention to the Guardians. Paul Hoynes, Guardians beat reporter for Plain Dealer, cleveland.com, straight ahead on Sports4CLE. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We turn our attention to the Guardians. We showed you earlier in the show, Guardians made it 6 of their last 7 with a win against the Baltimore Orioles. Let's welcome Guardians beat reporter for Plain Dealer, cleveland.com, Paul Hoynes. Hoynesy, Logan Allen pitched well. They're starting to get the type of starting pitching they thought they would.
Yeah, that momentum is building. Dave started during the homestand. They go 5-1 against the White Sox in Kansas City, and Logan Allen gives them a solid start Tuesday night in Baltimore. This guy is not allowed an earned run, Dave, in 15 innings, 15 consecutive innings, covering 3 starts, and he was in control last night. Looked like he could have gone a little deeper into the game.
Yeah, lefty, your 5th starter. When you're getting that, and you know, don't forget the time. Last time out, Luis Ortiz. So you're starting to get that production from the back half of your rotation. And if they get that with the bullpen that they have, it's going to be tough to beat this team if they hit just a little.
Yeah, I mean, this in the last 7 games, the rotation is 3-1 with a 1.47 ERA. I mean, compared to what they did on the opening road trip, that 9-game trip, I mean, they've really put some quality starts together. And you're right, Ortiz kind of kicked that thing off with that really strong performance against Kansas City, when he struck out 10 guys in 5 2/3 innings. And when you combine it with the bullpen, they're getting really solid pitching.
You know, the other thing that was good to see is a fairly normal appearance for Emmanuel Clase yesterday. And I know you wrote an article. Take us through the article about Clase. People tend to forget, you know, he's human.
He is human, definitely. And, you know, it's such a, you know, the closer's role. You pitch in a telephone booth. I mean, it's a black and white situation. You either save the game or you lose it. Very rarely does a closer get out of the ninth inning with the score still tied. And so, you know, that's that's a different kind of role. And you've got, I think we all kind of lose sight of the fact that for the last 3 years, this guy's been the best closer on the planet, as the Guardians like to say, but mostly in the American League. And, you know, goes 47 for 50 and saved chances last year. This season, he stubbed his toe, no doubt about it. He gave up 5 earned runs all last year in 74 1/3 innings. This year, he's already given up 6. But, you know, I think, you know, he kind of was reflecting on that when we talked to him. He said, you know, I've made some mistakes. I am human. This thing is going to happen. And, you know, he conceded that he's probably set the bar really high for himself. And when he doesn't match that, he doesn't get over that bar, you know, alarm bells go off, especially in the fan base and really, especially in that dugout where Stephen Vogt stands.
And it's interesting. The locate. It's been the location. The velocity is there. You kind of wonder, is his ball not moving as much? Everybody's searching for a reason, and sometimes the reason is hitters are going to eventually hit guys that throw really hard.
Yeah, and they've been, you know, everybody, the Vogt has said the same thing. Vogt, Austin Hedges, his catchers, he said, you know, the rest of the league is really planned, you know, have good plans going into their at-bats against Class A. Class A said himself, look, I throw 2 pitches, a cutter and a slider. So they're going to be aggressive against that. What the Guardians want him to do is throw the slider more, work up in the strike zone a little more. And you saw that, I think, Tuesday night against Baltimore, especially in that last at bat. He struck a guy out on a high fastball. Instead of, you know, he's locked into, you know, down in the zone. His delivery is set to throw down in the zone. But Carl Willis is trying to talk to him about pitching up in the zone a little more with that cutter at 99 miles an hour. And you're really going to, you know, give the hitter another, you know, thought to put in his head to try and hit this guy. But they have had hard contact against him. It started in spring training. It's carried into the regular season. So it was good to see him have, you know, the kind of save he had last night, except for that one, the last ball that Quan made the great catch on. So, you know, this is always, always on the edge of your seat with the closer.
Bullpen, you know, they had a huge workload last year and were really good. I know, again, you wrote an article about it. It seems like they're picking right back up where they left off for the most part.
Yeah, the 4 guys, you know, with the exception of Class A, you know, well, the 4 guys, Cade Smith, Tim Herron, Hunter Gaddis, have all been lights out. And they've got some help. You know, they really made a couple of really smart moves during the winter when they added Paul Sewald and Jacob Junis, 2 veteran guys. Junis has yet to give up a run in, I think, 9 or 10 appearances. Sewald has been, you know, really, he gave up a couple runs early and then has been locked down since then. And they've really helped take the burden off those, you know, the 4 core guys of the pen. So, you know, that Vogt isn't going to them day in and day out.
So, you know, everybody's kind of wondering what's wrong with the Guardians. They're a half game out of first place in the AL Central at 9-7, and that's also a half game from being tied for the best record in the league. 10-7, best record in the league. The thing I'm curious, how concerned are you with this offense, though?
Yeah, the offense is I think the weather's playing in a lot of into that, Dave. But still, yeah, offensively, you're getting some production from guys like Quan. Manzardo was hot for a while. You're not getting the 3, 4, 5, 6, or 3 or 4 or 5 guys hitting at the same time. And so that's why it's been nice to see a guy like Angel Martinez come up from AAA, really give them a spark. I mean, this guy's playing all over the place. He's getting 3 hits a night. He's stealing bases. He's making great plays in the outfield. And I know Vogt has that theory of playing everybody on the roster, playing all 26 guys. Trying to get at least everybody gets in a game during a series. But if I vote, I've got to find a place for Martinez and have him play every day. I don't care where it is, but you got to ride the hot hand.
I'm with you, and I would hit him top to middle of the order too, because he can run. He's one of those guys that makes things happen.
Yeah, he's a switch hitter. He's playing center field for Lane Thomas. He can move in to play second base or on the infield. He played right field Tuesday night. Just really an exciting guy. And we saw flashes of this last year in spring training when he had really a great camp, but then got hurt. He fouled the ball off his foot. Then he broke his hamate bone in his hand. This spring, Dave, he was really a quiet spring. He did not really do that much. Then he went down to AAA and just took off. And since they've called him up, he's gotten better.
Yeah, you can't all with Nolan Jones and we talked about Manzardo had the really nice trip and I think he's one of his last 20 with like 6, 7 strikeouts. It just hasn't looked the same. He's starting to chase a little bit, I think, is kind of what he's trying to do too much. He realizes he's in the middle of that order. They need him to hit.
Yeah. I think he got off to the hot start. He had a great spring. He carried that into the early part of the regular season. I think he's struggling a little bit now. I think he's got to face a few more lefties. I mean, this is a left-hander that hits lefties, and he's got 4 home runs. I think 3 of them have come up against lefties. So hopefully, we see a left-hander somewhere in the near future here.
Before I let you go, I know you had this as one of your Hey Hoynesies. Anybody that's available that the Guardians can get to kind of try to bolster that offense?
I just think it's so early right now, Dave. I think, they're probably looking at people, but nobody is really going to make a move now this early. We're not even through April yet. All these teams worked like 6, 7 weeks to name their 26-man roster that they wanted to open the season with. I think you've got to give that time for those 26 guys to play out and see how they unfold, and then start making some moves. If you get into the second or 2.5 months into the season, then you got a much better feel for where you are.
Paul Hoynes, as always, great stuff. Appreciate you taking some time to chat Guardians with us. Thanks very much, Hoynesy.
Thank you.
Paul Hoynes, make sure you check him out. Guardians beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Always the best Guardians coverage in town. It's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.